Welcome to Fantastic Vision. Please subscribe us before you watch today's video. Semiconductor is an industry highly dependent on globalization. The manufacture of chips requires the use of technologies from more than 20 countries around the world. Although China's contribution is not at the top level, it supplies core rare metal raw materials. All of them are indispensable. The US chip rules have been implemented for more than 3 years. Although the supply of high-end products of Chinese companies has been cut off, fortunately the global supply chain has not been interrupted. Relying on the efforts of domestic companies, a mature process industry chain has been created. The 14 nanometers technology achieved by SMIC after the mass production of the process, the plight of the lack of cores in China has been suspended. In view of the growth rate of China's semiconductors, the Biden team feels threats all the time. In order to completely isolate Chinese companies, they signed a tripartite agreement with Japan and the Netherlands. Immediately dropped to 45 nanometers. In addition, the United States also wants to further implement shipment controls on Chinese companies. Discussions have begun since June. Fortunately, Intel, Qualcomm, Nvidia and other American chip giants have rebelled and temporarily persuaded Biden team, but it is obviously impossible to compromise on this. After the announcement of the Dutch ban, China's bottom line was completely challenged. I don't have to play anymore, so naturally everyone should stop playing. For the first time participating in the interruption of the global industrial chain, a big one came directly. Recruitment. The shipment restrictions on gallium and germanium will be officially implemented on August 1st. This directly hit the United States by surprise, and directly shifted the responsibility to the Dutch ban, which also completely angered the so-called allies. More and more countries and regions are participating in the ranks of technology debeutification. However, within the time limit, US companies applied for gallium and germanium many times and were rejected. The helpless Biden team had no choice but to pick up waste products and use them. According to a Bloomberg report, the relevant departments of the United States will sign recycling and marriage contracts with companies in the United States or Canada at the end of the year, focusing on extraction from other product waste streams. Does this mean that the problem of raw material supply in the United States has been resolved? Did China's countermeasures fail? According to US media reports, the United States currently has sufficient reserves of germanium metal, but a serious shortage of germanium metal reserves. These two are key raw materials for industries such as semiconductors, communications, and new energy. With the current status of Sino-US trade cooperation, if the Biden team does not compromise on shipment restrictions, it will be impossible to resume supply. However, after the United States announced the waste recycling plan, many media misinterpreted it as the problem of raw material supply has been solved. It is indeed a good choice for now, but obviously there are still big problems, regardless of whether it is possible or not. To meet the actual needs, purely in terms of refining accuracy, is a big problem. In the current stage of high-tech products, there is no room for error in any link, and gallium and germanium, as the core metal materials, must have high requirements in terms of purity. At present, the world's top refining technology is in the hands of Chinese companies. It is also the main factor for China to achieve the first place in reserves. From the analysis of the current situation, the United States has already acquiesced to this point, which is why the Democratic Republic of the Congo did not dare to agree when it announced that it has abundant reserves of gallium and germanium. However, it is relatively safe to extract from old equipment. After all, the metal block has been formed, barely able to meet the needs of direct use. Therefore, although the United States has solved the temporary supply problem, it has not yet got rid of the restrictions of mainland China. The role of raw material control measures is obviously more effective than the review of Micron, which directly accelerated the forced palace of U.S. companies. The chain reaction triggered by peer-to-peer countermeasures is still in progress. After learning that the U.S. was going to upgrade shipment restrictions, Intel, together with Qualcomm, Nvidia and other U.S. companies, went directly to Washington to start negotiations with high-level officials. There is no need to build factories in the United States. Such a tough attitude made the Biden team compromise, but the United States has always wanted to face, so it is naturally impossible to admit defeat. Now the plight of Chinese companies is also obvious. In Japan, 23 items of core-making product shipment control are implemented. After that, the restricted area has been lowered to 45 nanometers. Once the inventory of auxiliary materials is emptied, the subsequent production of mature processes may face difficulties. The situation in the United States is also not much better. Losing orders in the Chinese market, American companies have suffered a serious decline in revenue. It will become difficult to continue their actual operations. Relying on waste to extract metal elements will eventually run out one day. Will face even greater danger. It is impossible for China's semiconductor to compromise. After finally standing up, it will naturally not fall down so quickly. The next step is to see who can support the other. Do you think the United States will admit defeat? What do you think about this?